I've traveled all the way from Spain to the United States to Yestermorrow Design and Build School just to learn how to design and build tiny houses. Today, I'll be asking my teachers some questions so we can get some advice and ideas from them. This is Lina Menard, and she's a tiny house consultant from Niche Consulting, and she helps people design smart, small spaces. Lina, which is one advice that you will give to someone about to start planning their tiny house?
I would encourage people to visit as many small spaces as you can and take inspiration from those spaces. If you can see a tiny house, if you can see an apartment, if you can see a yurt, a tree house, a houseboat, any space where somebody's had to be really strategic about how to use that space well is a great place to visit. So visit those spaces, bring a tape measure with you, figure out how big they are, take notes, take photos, write notes to yourself about what you love about that space, how it feels to you. And if you're able to stay in a small space for even a few days, live in that space as though you'd really live in it. So do your dishes, make your bed, try to change the sheets, see what it is like to actually be in a space that's that small and think about how you would live in a space like that.
What is the biggest mistake that people make when planning their tiny houses, and how can they avoid it?
I've seen a few different mistakes people have made along the way. I think there are some people who don't learn enough about structure before they build their house, and their houses are built in such a way that they're not going to stand up and they're not going to be durable and they're not going to take good advantage of the resources and materials that were used for a long time. Mm-hmm. So understanding how to build a house is really important, and talking with builders, talking with designers, watching videos, coming to a class like we offer here at Yestermorrow are ways for people to understand what makes a building work. So I think that's very important. I would say one of the biggest mistakes I see people make too is that often they'll get very excited and very inspired, and if they're building a tiny house on a trailer or they're building a house on a foundation, they'll either buy their trailer or pour their foundation before they design their house. And I think that's a big mistake. I think if you design your house first and you understand what you really want to put in your house, what really, really matters to you most, how you're going to live in the space, then you can go forward with your foundation. But if your foundation is fixed, if you've already got your water line installed in the foundation of your house, or if you've already purchased your trailer and you're trying to fit everything in, sometimes you're in a position where you can't add the 2 extra feet that make your design work.
Okay, that's a good one. Why do you think sustainable design is important?
Oh my goodness. Because we live on a planet with finite resources. And there are so many people who are sharing this planet with us that it's really important that we're mindful about the resources that we use, the energy we use, the materials we use, that we are designing and we are building in ways that don't compromise other people's ability to live well on this planet.
Mm-hmm. What are the steps you will follow to plan a tiny house?
There are a lot of steps involved in the tiny house design and build process. And I think the very first one is the kind of preliminary process of figuring out if a tiny is even right for you. Mm-hmm. It's not right for everyone, or not right for everyone at every stage of life. Yeah. Even people who are tiny house people, it's not always the right fit for them depending on what's going on in their lives. So feasibility, right? Figuring out if it's doable. Do you have the money? Do you have the time? Are you going to do the work yourself? Are you hiring somebody else? Really thinking through what it's going to make, what it's going to take to make the tiny house work. Mm-hmm. That's a first step. And then in the design process, we go through what's called concept design, where we think through what's the big idea here? What are the, you play around with lots of different floor plans and you figure out, oh, I want to have a bedroom here, or I don't want to have a loft, mm-hmm. or I want to have a wet bath, or I don't want to have a wet bath, so you go through a lot of different versions. We call it iterating, and we do iterative design, lots and lots and lots of different versions, so we can come up with the best parts of all the designs to make a really good design. So once we have our concept, we go into what we call design details. In the design details phase, we're figuring out the look and feel of the building. We're figuring out which refrigerator are we going to use, which sink are we going to use, what are we going to paint, what color are we going to paint the walls, all these things. And then we go into construction documents and we figure out how are we actually going to build it. What's our framing layout? What's our sheathing layout? Which windows are we ordering? We get into those details and we come up with the plans we need to actually build the house. And then once we're under construction, we work on the site. We get our site ready. And if you're building a tiny house on wheels, that would mean getting all situated to build, figuring out a place that maybe you can build inside for the very beginning, or maybe you've got all of your tools set up, whatever it is that's the right place to get started. And then we get our foundation ready. So the foundation might be helical piers, it might be a concrete slab, it might be a platform in a tree house, it might be a tiny house trailer, whatever the foundation of the house is. Then we build our walls, we build our roof. If they're not sheathed on the ground, they'll be sheathed once the house is already framed.
Okay.
And then we would insulate the house on the outside, the inside. We'd run our plumbing and electrical if it's all on the inside, so that the house, we call it rough in when we do the preparation for all the plumbing and electrical. We insulate, we cover up the walls. We call it cover when we cover the walls and you can't see anymore. And things can go a little back and forth depending on the weather, depending on material availability, whether you're working on finishing the outside or finishing the inside. It can go back and forth a little bit. But once that's done, then it's finishing. So all of the paint, the flooring, the cabinets, the lighting, all of the things that make it a functional house. And then the very end is nesting. And this is where you put the hooks up on the wall so that you've got to put a place to put your coat, a place to put your shoes, and that part is making the space cozy. So we do that whenever we move into a new apartment, whenever we move into a new house, we do that nesting part. But in a tiny house, I think it especially matters, this nesting part, because in a tiny house, every little detail matters more.
Yeah.
So figuring out where you're going to hang your coat, put your keys, those things are more important details in a small space.
What's one thing you wish people know before transitioning to tiny living?
I think one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're transitioning to living small is that you are making this choice intentionally. So you're going to have to make a lot of other intentional choices. It doesn't work to take all of the big things and shrink them into a small space. You have to be really thoughtful about what it is that you truly need and want. And one of the ways I like to think about this is that you are comfortable a lot of the time. You live, I call this living to the lowest common denominator. What is it you do a lot of the time that you can be pretty comfortable doing that thing? And so if you can be pretty comfortable most of the time with having a pair of slippers and a coat and, a blanket and being comfortable, then you don't need to put in this really big heat system. You put in a heat system that keeps you comfortable most of the time, and then you put a sweater on when you need to. So I think rather than necessarily planning, I'm going to have a washing machine and a dryer and a dishwasher and all these other things that you would have in a bigger space, you think about what could I do most of the time that will work for me? And then on a special occasion, I can borrow, I can rent, I can go somewhere else to have that thing, So a lot of places I've lived, I haven't had a washing machine and dryer. And it's not as convenient, but it's an intentional choice.
Yeah.
That I'm going to share that resource with someone else because it's a lot of space to take up, it's a lot of money to spend for something I don't use very many hours in a week. So being really mindful about what it is that really makes your life better and figuring out how can you have the things that make your life better, that help you live the life you want to live without anything extra.
Nice. Thank you very much, Lina, for all your advice and ideas, and I hope it's helpful.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.